Everyone's admitted. Let's get going. So welcome. Welcome everyone to Fox Talks. I'm David Fox, certified high performance coach and member of a search and rescue team. Now, I am excited that you are here because we have an incredibly important session, a really powerful session today where you're going to learn the science of identity and how it explains why some people soar, why others flail. Now, I know that we have some new folks with us today. So for the new folks, just 30 seconds of quick housekeeping. So we keep the cameras and the cameras off and the mics cold. And we do that so that we're all not distracted by what's going on in the backgrounds and people's cameras and things like that. We have 30 minutes. We have a lot of ground to cover. So we just want to remain focused. The second thing is that if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. And if we don't have time today to get to them, I promise that we'll email you directly with a response. And lastly, feel free to use the reactions button liberally. Because we have the cameras off, this will keep us connected. And that way I'll understand if something is landing for you. So feel free to use the thumbs up, the hearts, thumbs down, whatever you wish, whatever you feel. Okay, so we're here for 30 minutes. And I promise not to go over that time. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with a question. Why do some people soar while others flail? Now, imagine this. You have two professionals, similar intelligence, similar opportunities, similar pressure. One of them moves with momentum and decides cleanly, and they hold their standards, and they recover quickly when they feel a setback. Now think of the other one. This person, they overthink things. They negotiate with themselves. They second guess themselves, and they feel busy and slightly off. So what's the difference here? Well, it's typically not talent. It's typically not the effort. It's not access. The difference typically is alignment. You see, when someone's actions align with their identity, they soar. And when they're not aligned, they flail. So here's the part that most people miss. Identity is not something that you discover. It's something that you choose. See, how you see yourself, it's not a fixed thing. It's not assigned to you. It's not inherited. No, it's reinforced through repetition. And it can be consciously selected. So you get to choose it. So today we're going to talk about the science behind all of that. Now let me describe what flailing feels like. Let me define that for you because I've used that word a couple times. Let's make sure we're on the same page. So when someone's flailing, decisions will feel heavier than they should. They'll revisit conversations over and over again, and maybe you will soften your standards and you say yes when you really should have said no. And you know what to do, but yet you still hesitate. Now, from the outside, it looks like things are fine. Internally, it usually feels like friction. Like maybe there's some sand in the gears. Now, let's contrast that with soaring. Let me define soaring for you to make sure we're on the same page. Soaring, that's when you're aligned. And so your decisions come faster to you. Your boundaries are cleaner. The energy returns. Momentum builds and your confidence just compounds. It feels like you're not forcing yourself. Things just feel fluid. Things just click for you. You might even feel like you're in the zone. See, this happens because you're acting in integrity with who you've chosen to be. So that's not personality, that's identity alignment. So here's the science behind this. And I'm going to share 3 different concepts, and they're going to layer on each other, and they're going to explain how this works. And then I'm going to show you how to implement this in your life. But let me ground us first. So psychologists use a term, self-concept clarity. They use that to describe how clearly and consistently someone understands who they are. So folks with high concept clarity, they experience less stress. They make decisions more efficiently, and they recover faster from setbacks. Folks with low self-concept clarity, they ruminate more. They second-guess themselves, and they feel mentally exhausted even when life looks fine. So why? Why does that happen? What's going on there? It's because your brain is constantly checking for alignment between your actions and your identity. And when your identity is unclear, the brain just has to keep working. And that ongoing evaluation is draining. So clarity feels calm because the mental load drops. Now, there's another well-established principle called cognitive dissonance. You may have actually heard of that term before, and it is incredibly powerful. You see, when our behavior conflicts with our identity, the brain experiences tension, and that tension has to be resolved. So research shows that people resolve that in just one of 2 ways. Either you change your identity to match you change your behavior to match your identity, or you change your identity to match your behavior. Let me say that again because I messed it up, and it's so important and powerful. Either you change your behavior to match your identity, or you change your identity to match your behavior. You change the story that you tell yourself about yourself to match your behavior. Now, high performers, they protect identity first. This is why identity-based change lasts longer than goal-based change. Because it's not about motivation, it's about internal consistency. So when you clearly claim who you are, the brain works to keep your actions aligned with that claim. Now, here's the third layer for you. Neuroscience also shows that identity shapes what you notice. I'm sure we've all experienced this. You buy a car, some make or model of some car, some color, and all of a sudden you see them everywhere on the road, right? So let's say you buy a red car, and now all of a sudden you notice all the red cars all around you. It's not because there's more red cars on the road, it's because your identity is shaping what you notice. You own a red car. It's part of your identity. You're a red car owner. And now you notice all the other red cars. Your identity is shaping what you notice. So if you see yourself as capable, then your brain is going to scan for options. If you see yourself as overwhelmed, then your brain scans for threats. It's the exact same environment, just a different filter is being used. So identity does not just shape your behavior, it shapes your perception. Now, here's the part I want to stress. Identity is not something you wait to feel. Your identity is a choice. It's something you choose to reinforce. So most people, unfortunately, they drift into an identity. Maybe they'll say things like, I'm just not disciplined, or I'm bad at boundaries, or I'm always overwhelmed, or I'm no good at public speaking, or I always mess this up. Folks, I'm here to tell you, those are not facts. They are just repeated identity statements. And repeated identity statements become standards. And those standards are going to drive your choices. And those choices are going to drive your outcomes. So if you want to soar instead of flail, you must constantly choose, consciously choose, who am I committed to being here in this moment, in this situation? And not when it's just easy, not when the waters are calm, but also when it's uncomfortable, when those waters are choppy. So here's the model for today. Your identity is going to determine your standards. And those standards are going to drive your choices. And those choices are going to drive your outcomes. Let me give you a couple examples to illustrate this. So, if you choose the identity disciplined, then the standard might become, I do what I said I was going to do. And that's then going to drive the choices that you make and drive the outcomes that you then experience. Let's give you another one. If you choose the identity resilient, then the standard might be, I recover quickly from a setback. Now you know how to act. Before any other questions or choices might be presented to you, you already have the roadmap for how to behave, for the actions you should take. So the choice becomes upstream. We start with identity, and that's going to come downstream all the way to your outcomes. So let's make this real. Think of a moment when you were soaring. Not perfect, but definitely aligned, where things were just clicking for you, when you felt like, wow, this is really me. Who are you being then? So I want you to describe this with just one word that would describe that situation. Who are you being in that moment? Being disciplined? Maybe that word is calm or creative or courageous. Maybe it's caring or focused or resilient or decisive or creative. Wait, I said creative twice. Fine, 2 big helpings of creativity. All right, so you have your word. Now I want you to ask 2 questions. The first question is, what does a blank person do here? And that blank is your word. Okay, so what does a creative person do here? What would a creative person do in this situation? What would a caring person do in this situation? Whatever your word is, put it in this question. What does a blank person do here? And now, equally as important, and sometimes even more importantly, what does a blank person not do? So what does a creative person not do? What does a resilient person not do? So let's use resilient. So what does a resilient person do in this type of a situation? Well, they're going to get themselves off the ground, dust themselves off, and try the next option on their list of things to do. Or they're going to get themselves dusted off and just get right back at it. What does a resilient person not do? Well, they don't view themselves as a victim. They don't marinate in disappointment, and they don't blame others. See how this becomes a roadmap for how you behave? Your identity will be that roadmap for you. So now let's bring this into something real. I want you to think of a decision that you're circling, or maybe a standard that you've softened, or a conversation or a one-on-one that you're avoiding having, or maybe it's a boundary that you've let get blurred. So ask yourself, are you flailing because you lack strategy? Or is it because you're not acting in alignment with the identity that you say that you value? That hits hard, doesn't it? That one question alone can change behavior. So I have some homework for you. What I want you to do is to pick 3 words that are your identity. You already chose one, choose 2 more. So 3 words that are your identity. You get to pick them, you choose. I'll share you mine just so you can see what we're getting at. So my 3 words that I use for my identity is resilient, courageous, and joyous. And with those 3 words, I know how I should behave in any given situation. I know that when something happens and I need to respond, I will either respond as a resilient person or a courageous person or a joyous person. So what will be your 3 words? Your assignment is that at the end of this session, we're going to finish a couple minutes early so that you have time. At the end of this session, I want you to sit and think for just a few moments what your 3 words are. And then I want you to write them down on a Post-it note and slap it on your computer screen or someplace else that you'll see it every day. And then every day, I want you to ask yourself, how can you live these 3 words today? Then for leaders in organizations, this multiplies. Your culture is a collective identity. If you model decisiveness and resilience and discipline and caring, maybe innovation, your team will internalize that. If you model hesitation, maybe soft standards, quiet rationalization, they're going to internalize that too. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're the leader of an organization and the culture that you want to have is that our frontline employees, the folks that are interacting with our customers or our clients, they are the most important piece of the puzzle. Without them, there is no company. Without them, everyone else fails. They're the most important piece of the puzzle. So that's a great one, by the way. I love that. Now, how would that then become into action? How does that identity translate into behaviors? Well, let's say, you're the big parking lot outside the office, and there's a string of parking spaces right by the door. And each one of those parking spaces says it's reserved for an executive. Does that feel like that action, that behavior is in alignment with that identity that we just described? Or is it misaligned? Well, it's misaligned in my book, and now that's going to create tension. And so one of 2 things are going to happen. Either the behavior is going to change to match that identity of our folks are on the front line or the most important piece of the puzzle, or that identity is going to drift to that action. Now imagine that same company, and instead of those spots being reserved for the executives, they're reserved for employees of the month. And every division, every department, every business unit gets to pick one every month. They decide, and it's reserved for them. And the executives have to fend for parking spots just like everyone else back in the parking lot. That's an example of the identity that we described and the behaviors being in alignment. And that's how a company soars. So organization soar or flail based upon shared identity alignment. Folks, we're starting to get to where we're going to close this out so I can give you enough time to work on your homework assignment. So I'm going to finish with where we started, with the same question. So why do some people soar while others flail? Because some people choose their identity and then act in alignment with it, while others drift. Clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from choosing who you are committed to being before the next decision even shows up. So before you make that next phone call, before you answer that next email, before the next one-on-one, before the next status meeting with your team, before you soften, perhaps, your next standard, I want you to pause. And I want you to read your 3 words. And then ask yourself, would someone with these 3 words, what would they do here? What would they do in this situation? And then act accordingly. That's where soaring starts. So folks, I hope today's session has served you. It is our honor to coach you. And we'd love the opportunity to work with you one-on-one or perhaps with your team. At the end of this session, you're going to get an email both today and tomorrow that will have the access to the replay. Share it with your team. Share it with your colleagues. Share it with your friends, your family, your loved ones. And if it's a team you're sharing with, share it with them, or heck, we'll come in and do a workshop with you and do it together. But whatever it is, adopt this. It is incredibly powerful. Okay, I'm giving you the gift of time. We had booked 30 minutes. I'm giving you 8 minutes back to do your homework assignment. Remember, 3 words that are your identity. Put them on a Post-it note, slap it on your computer, your laptop, put it as a reminder in your phone. And then every day ask yourself, how would someone with these 3 words, how would they act? How would they navigate life? And act accordingly. All right, folks. Jen and I wish you ridiculous amounts of success, love, and joy. Cheers.